Hello, I'm Dr. Scott Watier.
And I'm Tommy Welling, and you're listening to the Fasting for Life podcast.
This podcast is about using fasting as a tool to regain your health, achieve ultimate wellness, and live the life you truly deserve.
Each episode is a short conversation on a single topic with immediate actionable steps. We cover everything from fat loss and health and wellness to the science of lifestyle design.
We started Fasting for Life because of how fasting has transformed our lives, and we hope to share the tools that we have learned along the way. Hey everyone, welcome to the Fasting for Life podcast. My name is Dr. Scott Watier, and I'm here as always with my good friend and colleague Tommy Welling. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Hey Scott, how are you?
Doing fantastic, my friend. Excited for today's conversation. We're going to be getting into an article that just recently came out in the Journal of Clinical Nutrition. It is alternate day fasting elicits larger changes in fat mass than time-restricted eating, aka fasting, in adults without obesity. So we're talking about BMI of 23 to 30, so in that normal to overweight category. We're going to expand this out to encompass all fasting lifestyles, and excited for today's conversation. Tommy, if you're new to the podcast, welcome in. We're going to make this digestible and actionable for you today, so you can take one or two things out of today's episode like you heard in our open and put them into your fasting lifestyle starting today. If you want to know more about how fasting transformed our lives, head back to episode 0, episode 1. Give it a listen. You'll get a peek in behind the curtain on how fasting transformed us and why we do what we do week in and week out on this podcast with the episodes, with our coaching, with our resources, etc. And just excited for a powerful 2026, Tommy.
Yeah.
Before we get into the conversation today, I want to give a shout out to JB Miller 23, who left us one of our favorite reviews, a 5-star variety. Yes. They said, excellent, exclamation point. This is the information I've been looking for. So Tommy, break down.
Awesome. Yeah, JB Miller says, these guys are great. Thank you. Thank you. They get into the science part of it without getting too nerdy. Probably
Sometimes.
most of the time. Yeah. So might disagree with you on some of those, but
don't put a cap on my nerdiness. Come on now.
Right. Such good, knowledgeable information. If you're struggling with type 2 like me, these guys can tell you how to reverse it. That's a strong statement right there. Absolutely. Absolutely. We do go through what can be done about it, where we always want to look at the possibilities and what can be done, because we've seen some incredible transformational journeys through podcast listeners, through the challenges, through our coaching as well. And it's amazing to see what's actually possible. And, because a lot of what we've seen on a case-by-case basis has been, absolutely eye-opening, and not things that you typically would hear when you're talking about blood sugar-related issues, diabetes, but also comorbidities that have a lot to do with insulin sensitivity or lack thereof, insulin resistance. And so that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today with respect to which kind of fasting actually is most effective for getting some of that weight off, helping to reverse those insulin related issues, and bringing back some of that insulin sensitivity that so many of us need so badly.
100%. So let's set the stage, because it's absolutely a need, especially in New Year's resolution time. We want to talk about actionable things we can do for the long term. So if we're going to set the stage for today's conversation, so we're going to be looking at this randomized control that pits ADF, so alternate day fasting. So you fast on one day, you feed on the next day, you fast on the next day, you feed on the next day. So we're not talking about modified ADF here. We're talking about true ADF, alternate day fasting. And it's going to pit ADF versus TRE, which is time-restricted eating. So let's think intermittent fasting, 16-8, your standard intermittent fasting schedule. Skip breakfast, eat from 12 to 8, that 8-hour eating window. And then it has a control group where there were no changes. And we'll break down exactly what that is in just a second. But we're going to pit ADF versus TRE versus the control group. And which one actually moves the needle on fat loss? Not scale movement. We're going to talk about the scale movement and the total pounds. But most importantly, that fat loss. And most importantly, on top of that, the visceral fat loss. That deep visceral fat that's in the belly, not the stuff that's beneath the skin, the subcutaneous fat, but the stuff that drives metabolic dysfunction. And really what it does in terms of your metabolic health We'll talk about metabolism, your resting metabolic rate. We'll talk about T3, one of your thyroid hormones, and really about the strategy on how to use ADF as a short-term strategy and how it fits into your long-term sustainability. Because if we just went to the most aggressive fast ever recorded in history and we referenced Angus Barbieri, who was a Scottish man who fasted for 308, he was morbidly obese. He fasted for 382 days from June 14th, 1965 to July 1st, 1966. He lost 276 pounds. It was doctor monitored. Right?
Of course, yeah.
Longest recorded fast. So that is the most aggressive fasting strategy you could ever implement. We don't recommend that.
All right.
We also don't recommend, from Upton Sinclair, who wrote The Fasting Cure in 1911. You can just Google that. You can get a PDF. You can read it. I'm going to paraphrase, but in there he says, no sane man or woman would fast for 2 to 3 days over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. That's not sustainable. That sounds terrible. 72-hour fasts are like my least favorite fast. So when we coach and we do our challenges and inside of our coaching group, we talk about this concept of fast cycling. So how do we get the biggest bang for your buck, physiologically speaking? But then what gives us the best amount of lifestyle adaptation or lifestyle change, habit formation, relationship with food, energy expenditure, quality of life, longevity, health? How do we balance that equation? And we've done a lot of conversations on ADF and modified ADF in terms from a research perspective, because it's one of the most researched fasting schedules out there. So when we break it down today, we want to kind of compartmentalize this as just like the episode we did when we talked about keto and how it's great in 90-day cycles for reversing metabolic dysfunction and type 2 diabetes, and not the therapeutic ketone application of staying on a keto diet long term and the implications for hormone health and neurological conditions like MS and Parkinson's and seizures and all that. But what does that for the majority of the population look like to adapt a long-term strategy? But what levers can we pull in the short term if you're stuck? Or if you really want to double down on visceral fat loss, how do you put this into your fast cycling and your fasting lifestyle on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis, right, Tommy?
Yeah, and so when we're talking about actual implementation, when you have we oftentimes hear like what's the best fasting schedule?
My favorite question in the history of all time.
Right, and it's such it's kind of a loaded question, and our first question back is usually, well, what are your goals? I know you oftentimes will say, well, it's going to be the one that you can stick to, but even that right there is like time dependent, because what I can stick to right now is probably going to be different than what I can stick to a month from now or a year from now, depending on how my goals have evolved in the meantime.
How you've evolved?
Right. Do you have a whole lot of fat to lose? Are you already feeling some fasting fatigue because what you've been doing has been either too difficult, or you found yourself white-knuckling, or you haven't been on or off? Yeah, that can be really tough, especially after the holidays, or maybe you haven't been seeing the results that you were expecting. When reality doesn't meet expectations, that can be enough to mess with the strongest willpower among us. So these kind of things are always a factor too. But when we look at a study like this showing the power of what we know to be one of the most powerful fasting methods, because of the mindset that's involved with it, as well as a powerful physiological 1-2 punch where you're getting full nutrition one day and then full fasting the next day, means that you're kind of always keeping the body guessing, but you're also eliminating a lot of the fasting fatigue, some of the frustration and just kind of the boredom that goes along with like doing the same exact thing every single day. And so in a short dose, like a couple weeks, to maybe a month, this can be a very, very powerful method as far as implementation goes. But if you're newer to fasting, we're going to talk about how to kind of wade into the waters as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's set the stage.
Okay.
And we'll get into it. So 76 adults, age 18 to 40, BMI 23 to 30, so the overweight or normal high, not obese. 3 groups for 4 weeks. So short study. And we're going to double down on this adherence and long-term strategy here of where and how you can use ADF. ADF, 0 calories, 0 food on fasting days. Ad libitum. So eat what you want, how much you want on alternate feast days. So your nutrition days, we like to say, because feast comes with those old baggage of the food relationships. Oh, all you can eat buffet. Let's go. I just fasted all day. Not that.
Mm-hmm.
And then TRE group. This is going to be the intermittent fasting group. They ate freely ad libitum from noon to 8 p.m., 16-8 window, no calorie targets. And then the control group, there was no change in timing, and they were given the general Mediterranean-style healthy eating handout.
Okay.
The primary outcome was a whole body fat MRI plus visceral and subcutaneous fat, body weight, resting metabolic rate, energy intake, activity energy expenditure. We're going to come back to that one in just a minute. Your movement and activity level, desire to do things, thyroid hormones, lipids, glucose, and quality of life. We're going to touch on that one as well. So what did this 4-week ADF versus TRE versus control group come with results? Well, ADF versus control, 2.1 pounds more fat loss in 4 weeks.
Wow.
So, yeah, they didn't make any changes. Duh, right? ADF versus just normal, go about your day, right? ADF versus TRE, though, versus the intermittent 16-8, 1.4 pounds more total fat loss with ADF than TRE in 4 weeks.
Very nice. Very nice.
Now, TRE versus control, so intermittent fasting group versus control, ad libitum during the 12 to 8, though, 0.7 pounds more fat loss in the TRE 16-8. This is why recently we've done the episode on the foundational fasting, episode 311. I know we've mentioned it the last couple of weeks as well, but we've gotten so much positive feedback on this. Like, this is the guardrail. This is your basis of your fasting lifestyle, is the foundational 16-8 fast. Because compared to the off-dieting, off-fasting lifestyle, you're still going to lose 0.7 pounds of fat, probably 2 to 3, maybe 3 to 4 pounds on the scale over the course of a month. If you got 20, 30, 50, 60, 80, 100 pounds to lose, that's sustainable. You'll take that. If you know you can do the bare minimum and get that result, hell yeah, sign me up, double down, take my firstborn, whatever you need. Okay? I don't mean that, Quinn. I love you. In terms of visceral fat, ADF cut visceral fat by 0.22 pounds more than the control and 0.21 pounds more than TRE. So small in absolute numbers, but meaningful because visceral fat is that stubborn fat that just won't move. And then body weight, total 5.8 pounds in the ADF group, 4.1 pounds more than the TRE group. And the TRE still lost 1.7 pounds total. So the fat to lean ratio, which body composition, which is what we want, improved more with ADF than TRE control, indicating composition shifted more favorably, not just the number on the scale.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's absolutely great. And it's probably going to also be a good portion of the explanation for how the activity energy expenditure saw an improvement in the ADF group over the other two groups. And so just that desire to want to move and the feeling, the perception of energy levels. I mean, we talk about it a lot. We hear about it a lot. Man, I started fasting and energy levels just seem to go up. Not only do I feel it in my body, but I also feel it in my brain as well. It feels like brain fog is lifted, kind of like I'm firing on all cylinders. When you're more active physically, you feel like your brain is moving faster, and so they're really intertwined. And so seeing that within the ADF group also makes sense because as living a maintenance fasting lifestyle, if I'm more on the 3 to 4 hour kind of nutrition opportunity window versus a 6 to 8 hour window, I'm going to feel so much more lighter and energetic with the shorter nutrition opportunity window. I just am. The longer that eating window goes and the later it goes as well, the less energy I'm going to feel, which to the uninitiated faster, it kind of sounds unintuitive because it's like I'm eating less, but I'm feeling more energetic. I don't understand. Well, the body has to utilize a lot of resources. There's a lot of blood flow that goes away from the muscles in order to actually process food. So the more often and the longer I'm processing food for, the less available nutrients I have during those processing periods. And so especially as it goes later in the day, because you're more insulin resistant. So feeling a higher energy level with more ADF is like that's something that gets me excited even more than the additional fat loss, or at least just as much so.
And this is why I do usually a Saturday night early dinner. I fast most Sundays and into Monday because I get that energy boost, that decreased brain fog, that mental clarity, that euphoria. And it's from a blood sugar standpoint, you're giving insulin time to come down. So you're tapping into ketones. So you're still going to get an energy boost. So let's talk, as you just kind of started to unpack that, activity energy expenditure. So the AEE. When we look at the energy intake, the AEE, that activity energy expenditure, we're talking about, the resting metabolic rate. We're talking about NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. We're talking about EAT, exercise activity thermogenesis. So this equation of what your body does with the energy that it intakes, what's it doing with it? Does it have time to use it? Is your insulin in a good place, and your metabolic flexibility in a good place where your body can use that energy and get it into the cells? Or is it being stored in glycogen, the stored form of glucose in the liver, or is it being shuttled into the fat cells and not allowing that scale to move? So the only group that saw a change in activity energy expenditure was the ADF group. So the people actually moved more, burning more calories through activity. We try in the calorie in, calorie out world, the weight loss world, to hack the total daily energy expenditure, the TDEE. I know I've said a lot of letters here. We try to hack the TDEE by restricting calories and increasing our activity, our exercise EAT category. That's only about 5 to 8%. The NEAT, the non-exercise activity thermogenesis, that's up to 20 to 25% depending on the individual. So the fact that these people were just more active, not in the form of exercise, but just moving more, counteracts what we saw, which was a short-term slowdown in the resting metabolic rate because of that big caloric decrease with the ADF schedule. So with the ADF schedule, the average caloric intake per day was 726 less calories compared to the control group, and 415 controlled to the TRE, or the intermittent fasting group. So why am I bringing this up? Is because with that big of a caloric deficit, yes, you're going to see a short-term decrease in your T3, which is your one of your thyroid hormones, directly influencing it's the active thyroid hormone driving your basal metabolic rate and your body's ability to burn through thermogenesis, burn through those calories. So T3 comes down, RMR comes down in the short term. This is why we're going to talk big picture that ADF, when we use it on our coaching group, when people that have hit the dreaded plateau, or they're not feeling the euphoric fasting effects from their intermittent fasting or the fast cycles that we typically rotate through anywhere from 18 up to 36, 42, sometimes 48 hours. When you get in using ADF, you're tapping into those hormonal signals and you're getting the energy boost from it, which makes it easier to stick to. So from a long-term sustainability standpoint, we don't want to use ADF over and over and over and over again. We want to use it strategically to stimulate visceral fat loss in 2 to 4 week increments, right? And when you look at TRE, TRE did not significantly change your resting metabolic rate or the T3 levels. So that's why we talk about foundational fasting, 16-8 as the foundation, because you're protecting that resting metabolic rate, thyroid hormone rate production, but using ADF strategically in 2 to 4 week increments will allow you to still see tremendous visceral fat loss if we're bringing it out, like beginning with the end in mind. What's the long-term strategy? Using this intermittently, pun intended, you're going to be able to continue that downward trend and you get to see that quality of life increase. The ADF group in this study was the only group. I'm going to get the reference here. I had it up in front of me. Is the only group that saw an improvement when looking at the quality of life index.
Wow. During a 4-week diet, during a 4-week fat loss phase, right?
Yep.
Like that's unintuitive, and that's typically not the case. If you review studies like this, most of the time there's not going to be an increase in quality of life score, which is indicated even within the control group, and and then seeing that in the TRE group too. That's great, and that has a lot to do with that available energy, that energy, expenditure there. That was an intuitive part of the process. It just happened naturally without, like you said, Scott, trying to just deliberately pull that lever. No, they just felt like moving more. They just felt more active, more vibrant, more alive. And if that's not, I mean, that's a great outcome measure. It's a little harder to measure, and it's not one that we typically see in studies like this. But that's a great one. That's a good direction just to be aiming in. And I thought it was interesting also that the ADF group was actually the leaner group. They were tied for the leanest group within this study too, which means that they would be the most likely to have a metabolic adaptation on the lower calorie utilization side. And so because of their relative leanness, but it also means that they would actually be the least likely to have the biggest loss of fat during the study too. And so it's interesting because if they had been if they had the same amount of fat to lose as the other groups, we could have even seen a larger difference in the amount of fat that they actually lost. So it's interesting too. But to circle back to your previous point, I think looking at ADF, true ADF like this, as a powerful intermittent tool, like you said, a few weeks of it goes a long way. But then knowing that at the end of that cycle, whether you choose to use it for a week or 2 or 3 weeks, then at the end of that, using your foundational fasting and using, like, let's say an 18-6 or one of the other methods in the blueprint to fasting for fat loss that you can grab at thefastingforlife.com, when you know what you're going to do on the back end of that cycle, that's powerful because you don't have to necessarily just always be in aggressive fat loss phase. Even if you have a good amount of weight to lose.
That's not real life.
Yeah, sure. You can, be prepared for those times when it's not the best week or two in order to be focused on that fat loss phase. We just came out of the holidays. That may have been a great time for you to focus on momentary maintenance, which is exactly how you can think about coming out of an aggressive ADF cycle like this, right?
Yeah, so ADF created a bigger energy gap, less in, more out, but the body responded by turning down the RMR slightly, which is very typical of a big caloric deficit, right? When you have aggressive weight loss.
Mm-hmm.
So to that point, it slightly lowered that T3 with no major TSH or T4. So that's an adaptive response, not a chronic response.
Yeah.
This is why we're saying cycle this into your routine, because we want to make sure that active T3 level does return to normal, and that's where that baseline intermittent fasting schedule, that foundational schedule, comes into play. But I want to double down on this, the quality of life questionnaire here from the World Health Organization. The ADF group was the only one where people felt better.
Yeah.
How many times have you done diet and weight loss before and you've just felt miserable? You're hungry and tired all the time. You're leveraging willpower all the time. You're white-knuckling it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That is not a long-term strategy. That's not fun. Yeah, bodybuilders, they'll go through cut and bulk phases, and those last 4 weeks before getting on stage, that's not fun. That's not where we want to live.
Right?
We want to live with balance and sustainability. So that increase in health-related quality of life was such just a really cool outcome measure that was secondary in this study, of course. And the adherence scores were both great. ADF was over 92%, and the TRE group was over 96%. So those are incredible adherence schedules when we're looking at this.
Yes.
So
What
let's wrap. Go ahead.
I was going to ask, what if that increase in quality of life was only due to the fat loss? What if those subjects,
Are you
those
saying like how
people,
people felt about what they're doing?
yeah, like what if they were down 4 or 5 pounds of, the majority of that is fat weight, and they were just feeling better and more energetic, and so maybe the other groups were just lagging behind. Maybe if you had extrapolated it, and once they got to that point of fat loss, maybe they would have felt just as well too. I don't know. We don't know the exact why behind it, but we do know that it happened and it's powerful. And I think there's a big possibility that after seeing what's possible and losing a few pounds of fat like that, and again, these people were normal to overweight, and they weren't obese, so they didn't necessarily have 50 plus pounds that they needed to lose, but they all had at least a few, if not 10 or 20, that they could definitely stand to lose, right? And so you can imagine they're feeling better at that point, and then once they do, their quality of life goes up. And so I think that's just another testament to what we oftentimes say, which is let's get some of the dang weight off,
Yep.
because there's so much on the other side of that. We just have to get the process started.
Yep, absolutely. So fasting lifestyle versus 4-week study. ADF versus foundational fasting, TRE 16.8. ADF, bigger short-term fat and weight loss, greater visceral fat reduction, and better changes in your lipid panel, increased activity energy expenditure, and your overall perceived feeling of well-being.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes, and yes. ADF trade-offs, bigger calorie deficit, metabolic adaptation, or slowdown in your resting metabolic rate in your free T3. But that only becomes a problem if it's prolonged.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Your TRE strengths for your intermittent fasting, moderate fat and weight loss without that concern of resting metabolic rate. So what can we do to protect that metabolic rate while fasting? This is stuff, no matter what fasting schedule you use, we teach this, we preach this, we live this. Mm-hmm. Is 2 to 3 times a week resistance training sessions. Prioritize protein on your nutrition opportunities. That is immediately going to slow down that metabolic decrease. Right? So avoid long-term aggressive fasting strategies. Angus Barbieri, not the strategy for anyone.
Mm.
Right? So how do we
Absolutely.
use this data in real life? Well, I think we should be doing a 2 to 4 week ADF strategically. Strength training, adequate protein, proper hydration, trace minerals, healthy salts. Mixing in, if you want more fasting schedules, go to the Blueprint to Fasting for Fat Loss, join a challenge, right? We'll teach you those fasting schedules that we use. They're all in that blueprint on how to ramp up and kind of cycle through the different fast cycles that we see that get the long-term sustainability component kind of built into it. Mm-hmm. And then if you're starting to feel that persistent fatigue, that cold intolerance, that plateau, this means that what you're doing, your body isn't responding to. We need to also listen to our bodies in this. So alternate day fasting can strip fat fast, improve those key cardiometabolic markers without having to be constantly in an aggressive fat loss. Oh, I got to do it. Oh, it's New Year's. Oh, more restriction, more movement, eat less, move more. No, we want to pull you away from that long-term mindset, that on-off mentality, mm-hmm. and really ultimately, Tommy, create that fasting lifestyle, right?
Yeah, and sometimes that's just about not worrying about what happened yesterday or what happened last week or last month or last year. As we get to, we're New Year time right now. And there can be a matter of sometimes you have that short-term regrets, oh man, I that last fast didn't go well, or I don't like what I did. And then the frustration, and then that can add to that temptation to do that next longer fast. Like you mentioned a couple of times, Scott, doing that 72-hour fast, and even longer than that. Sometimes, we talk to a lot of folks who are doing a 5 or a 7 or a 10-day fast, but it's for fat loss purposes. That's not optimal. That's not ideal. That's not a great idea, and it doesn't give you lasting results. Because yes, you can see the scale move, but typically what happens then is you have a lot of adaptation that come in, and then you also have pent up demand. You have you don't really necessarily have a plan on the back end of that, and that's why I wanted to really kind of emphasize that earlier. Knowing what you were going to do whenever the ADF cycle was over is really, really important, because what you do after the fast really matters. That's why thinking about this as more of a this is me fast cycling. Fast cycling means I'm going to be using foundational fasting. Maybe it's 16-8 for you. Maybe it's 18-6 for me. A lot of times, most of the time, it's 20/4. It's more of that kind of warrior time, because when I'm not doing that, I don't feel my best. And so it's for everybody, that maintenance kind of phase or momentary maintenance is going to look a little bit different. But ignoring the short-term frustration and the short-term regret that leads to the temptation to do that next longer fast is so much more productive. It's going to be productive in the short term. It just doesn't. It's just ignoring that cognitive temptation, I think, where it's like I missed an opportunity, I missed out on time. Let me do this. Let me do this longer fast, and that's going to work faster. It's like no. A little bit of patience goes a long way for the long-term results as well as the sustainability.
Yep. So, as you wrap up the conversation, man, this study, fasting works. Whether it's alternate day, time-restricted, intermittent fasting, 16-8, 18-6, 24. You can absolutely drop fat, improve your metabolic health. We want to respect those adaptations that are taking place. So how long or how hard you push, right? It's not just about losing weight for the 4 weeks. It's about protecting that lean muscle, that body composition, your sanity.
Your sanity, yeah.
Yeah, your sanity and sustainability.
Quality of life. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you can maintain those for the long haul. So using the right
energy expenditure, energy levels as well.
Yeah, feeling good about what you're doing, right, is so dramatically important. Oh, what's the best fasting schedule? The one you're going to stick to, the one you feel good about, the one you're excited about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Never been like, oh yeah, I'm going on a diet. Most people are like, wah, right? We don't want that.
Yeah.
So it's about maintaining those results for the long haul, using the right tool at the right time for the right reason for you, not for your neighbor, friend, or family member, right? Mm-hmm. So if you want help picking that tool, structuring for real world life, head to the website, thefastingforlife.com, grab a free resource, take the quiz, look at the blueprint to fasting for fat loss, because really, you don't have to be trying to figure this out on your own. Out there alone on Fasting Island, that's not what we want. We want to welcome you in. If you're new, thanks for being with us. Thanks for sticking with us. Tommy, lots of amazing things planned for 2026. Excited for what we've got in the can for this year. And man, as always, I appreciate the conversation. We'll talk soon.
Cool. Thank you. Bye. So, you've heard today's episode, and you may be wondering, where do I start? Head on over to thefastingforlife.com and sign up for our newsletter, where you'll receive fasting tips and strategies to maximize results and fit fasting into your day-to-day life.
While you're there, download your free Fast Start guide to get started today. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and we'll be back next week with another episode of Fasting for Life.